Hey, what's up everybody? It's Andre with AndreReese.Biz. All right guys, you know I'm your favorite cyclecaster out here in these Richmond, Virginia, aka RVA streets. So let's go ahead and get right into it right now. I'll let you guys know what my topics I'm going to talk about today. I'll tell you, there's one thing that I know is when my clients call me, especially the men, and they're about to get a divorce. So I want to talk to you guys about these divorce calls and the type of advice that I give them as they try to re-enter these streets out here. And what else am I going to talk about? I'm going to also talk to you guys about if I was going to flee the United States and leave and not come back, where would I go? And I'm gonna give you guys my top 5 places that I would flee and leave to. And it's all based on places that I travel. So I've got firsthand knowledge and information. And the final thing I wanna talk to you guys about is tonight's conversation. So the hottest podcast sweeping the country. I'm gonna go into detail about what we experienced when we went there the other day. So let's go ahead and kind of just do the B-roll real quick. So I'm enjoying being out here right now. It's about 9:40 in the morning on Friday. I'm cruising down past VCU, going to do my normal route that I do. And I just want to make sure this guy didn't walk out in the street. And there's a certain energy that's taking place out here in VCU as I pass it. You know, graduation is taking place. We're gonna go to a graduation later today as well as tomorrow. You know, always shout out to anybody that takes the time, energy, and effort to permanently redirect their life and give up personal time and capital oftentimes to be able to go back and get their education and go to school. So I always give props to anybody that does it. And the older we get, the harder it gets, but it's not impossible. So, you know, it's always definitely gonna be easier to do it when you get out of high school, but when you get to be older and you got a family and all that other kind of stuff, it gets to be a lot harder. And shout outs to all the continuing students out there for sure. And anybody that's taking the time to start the education. You know, I wish you guys all well in your endeavors, and I hope that you're able to achieve all your goals and what you want out of life as well as your career. So there's definitely a lot of energy down here in the VCU area. And the other day when I rode by, I think like 2 days ago, I probably saw no less than 10 people that were, you know, loading up their vehicles to go home because the semester is over with. You know, so shout out to everybody that's trying to keep it going. I know my daughter, she's finishing up her sophomore year this year, and she's on schedule to graduate on time in 4 years, you know, going to CSU school, which is not an easy feat at times. She's been very lucky and very blessed, and I'm definitely very proud of her. She's been able to get all of her classes that she needed and be able to even find a job on campus that is in her profession. So when she gets ready to graduate, she'll not only have the standard internship like, you know, most of the other kids are required to have in order to get out, but she will have 4 years worth of actual experience. And you know, she's definitely got an advantage over most of the other kids. And it would seem like it'd be kind of cool if there was a way that everybody, when they're doing a profession, they can go to school and they can also work in their field. That way, when they get out there ready to go, they're already adding value. So let's go ahead and jump into the first topic. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and do the topic about where would I flee to first. Oh, just real quick. So out here right now, it's about, it's roughly about 60 degrees. It's a little bit cool this morning. I'm bundled up and I've got on a pair of tights, shorts, and I've got on a t-shirt I've got on a long sleeve, and I've got on a short sleeve, and I've got on this little, outer shell here as well. So my brother is definitely warm. So I think it's somewhere up to 60, but probably closer to like 57-ish. So let's go ahead and jump into the first topic. Like I said, there's so many people right now that are fed up with living here in the United States. I get that. And a lot of it is just lip service, and a lot of it's just blowing off steam. There's very few people that actually truly, when they say they're gonna leave, they actually leave. I know and a lot of people don't have the ways or the means to be able to do that. And I know a number of celebrities, have postured and said, hey, I'm out of here. I'm gone. They got the ways and the means to leave, you would hope. And a lot of those have quietly come back to the United States. There's been a number of different people I've even seen on TikTok. There's this one couple, I think they were, just for context, I think they were a lesbian couple. They had a couple dogs and all that. You guys might have seen them. And they were very fed up with the potential encroachment on their lives. So they left and fled to Canada without doing a lot of research or looking into the probability of them being able to stay and work. And while they were there, they ran into hardship. So they had a small amount of savings. They blew through that, and they had no money to really take care of themselves or their dogs, and they wanted to come back. They didn't want to come back, so they took it to the TikTok level. I don't know if they did a GoFundMe or not, but they ultimately ended up, trying to raise money so that way they can stay, because all the things that they do here in the U.S., they're starting to wean off now, where individuals can come to the United States and they can get, we all know the drill. We all know everything. People can get healthcare services and housing services and food services, all that stuff. I'm not here to debate on that. It's just what happens. It is next to impossible to go really anywhere else in the world and get that type of beneficial services. So when they got to Canada, they were not able to get, first of all, they're not able to work, and they're not able to work legally, and all the different services that would potentially help them stay a little bit longer, none of them are able to receive those at all. And that's the reason for them having to turn around and go to the route of see if they can get some community support. All good, you gotta do what you gotta do. It makes sense. But like I said, there's a lot of people that they don't think about it in advance, and they don't see if they can actually make it, and so, like I said, all the stuff that I've considered here, as far as where I'd be able to go, we would be able to post up there and be able to survive. And I think one of them might be a little bit tricky at first. We'd have to kind of plan ahead to make sure we get the right visa. But all the other ones, we'd be able to roll in there fairly easily and make it happen. So let me go ahead and start with the very first one with you guys. What's the first one here? I got it written down. So the first place I would go, and we both love this place when we traveled. Number one on the list is Bangkok, Thailand. Man, we spent a little bit over 2 weeks there, living there. And I know a lot of folks have done having to resort to border runs, but we would take the time to actually get the proper visa where we can be nomadic and work there if we needed to. And, excuse me. That we can be nomadic and we can work there if need be and try to be able to get something that's extended. And I've looked online and the requirements to be able to do so, putting some money into a bank account and some other things, we would definitely be able to do to be able to, go there. And if you've ever been to Bangkok, Thailand, man, it is fantastic. And I loved everything about it. We both did. And I'll tell you, the food that they serve in the United States that they call Thai food, it isn't. In no way. And if you want to have the true experience, definitely go there. And the nice thing about Bangkok is it's kind of an experience of, especially in the city, of kind of where the village used to be, then they've kind of built up around it. You know, so you definitely get that experience. They've got a well-defined transit system, shopping and food and entertainment is everywhere. And the country is definitely low cost for sure. So, you know, I really liked that aspect of the country, and I would definitely relocate there. I know Marilyn would join me also as well. We both had an incredible time and an incredible experience there in Bangkok, Thailand. And so the next spot we would go is pretty much all the rest of them. Marilyn has citizenship in France, you know, so we can always, and that's part of the EU, and people can move back and forth between the EU easily, and I would be able to qualify for a spousal visa easily. And if I wanted to work there outright, if I wanted to work remotely, I can also do that too, legally as well, and not really jeopardize my situation or anything. But the second spot is Lyon, France. Man, she spent a number of years there going to university, and it is considered to be the gastronomic capital of France. I'm not sure you want to stretch it to Europe, but the food there is incredible. The sights to see there are absolutely incredible. You know, we would end up, and none of these places we would ever initially go there and buy property. We'd end up renting, and if that's something that turned into a situation where we wanted to lay down permanent roots, we would. But I'm more than happy to, you know, lay down, you know, rental roots there without actually committing to buy. And I think a lot of people, when they want to leave the U.S., the first thing they're thinking about is, I want to buy. But I really think you need to live there a long time and make sure you made the right decision. And because once you decide to buy, it's a lot more difficult to be able to get your money back if something happens you want to be able to leave. So yeah, definitely Lyon, France. It was incredible. It's a great city to be in. There's plenty of things to do. You've got access to the rest of Europe easily through the, what was it, train grand vitesse, and you know, local transportation. Everything is super bicycle friendly, and the food there is immaculate. And I had the best 2 burgers in my life in Lyon, France. And you know, America is based all on hamburgers. I just decided to randomly have a hamburger one day, and it was the best one I've ever had in my life. And I ended up doing a second one later, and just to check, and that was the second best I've ever had. So, you know, great food, great everything. And so, what's the third one? The third one would be Como, Italy. Wow, that place is amazing and fantastic and absolutely beautiful. How you doing? It's like waking up every day inside of a postcard, you know, so everything is absolutely crazy, amazing, beautiful. And I'll tell you, the best Chinese food I've ever had in my life was in Como, Italy. It was a sit-down tablecloth restaurant, and I think the guy was actually from Brazil, but he grew up in Brazil, but he was Chinese national. So, you know, food was awesome and incredible. And I also had the best cheesecake of my life ever on earth at that restaurant. You know, so it was a New York cheesecake, and the way that it was laid out and done, it was really cool. And you're not very far from Switzerland, If you've never been to Switzerland, man, I'm telling you, it is absolutely amazing there. And so the only reason why I didn't pick Switzerland to be on the list is because of the costs associated with the country. And it's very much a closed society, very similar to Dubai. So it's not easy to get citizenship there. And they do their own thing. And they're very much independent. You know, so definitely Como, Italy. And I think the next one that's on the list, number 4, would be Toronto. And when we spent time in Toronto, visiting one of Marilyn's friends, I really enjoyed and loved the spirit of Toronto. And we went to the Niagara Falls and checked all that out as well. But the people were cool. There were plenty of things to do. And the immigrant community at the time, I don't know what it is now, was very, very strong. And they brought a lot of spice and culture to the area. And like I said, everybody was cool. They were very kind and they looked out. And it would be easy for us to relocate to Canada permanently if we wanted to. And because there's, I don't know if it's a reciprocal agreement between France, but citizens can go back and forth and easily park up there, you know, and so I can hop on that visa and get a spousal visa very easy. I smell something crazy over here. I don't know if it's like a dead body or a large dead animal. I smelled it just the other day when I was on the other side. So it's something down in that ravine. You know, hopefully it's nothing too crazy. It's just got that sour putrid smell that's, you know, that's doing its thing, you know, and so they'll figure it out sooner or later, I'm quite sure. And so, like I said, back to Toronto. We had a great time there. It was a great place to stay. The only thing that sucked about Toronto is that they get crazy winters, and but they do have, I call it almost like a utilidor system, kind of like Disney World, where they have underground tunnels where you can do shopping, and in the wintertime when it gets, you know, minus whatever, you know, you can easily still get out and be about. So if you're living downtown and your building is connected to the network, you can still move about and get around and do your thing without having to, you know, deal with the harsh situation that's up on the Earth's surface. So definitely would go there. And I think the last spot here, so like I said, Bangkok is number 1, Lyon is number 2, Como, Italy, number 3, and that's in the EU, so that would be easy for us to go. Number 4 is Toronto. And the last one is London, England. And I'll tell you, specifically, if you're familiar with England, they have different transit zones. So you start out with the center of the city, that's zone 1. Then you kind of spread out from there. Zone 2, 3, 4, 5. I think they go to 7, 8, or 9, somewhere in there. But definitely live down in zone 1 or zone 2. I really enjoyed when we spent time in Kensington, and so everything is beautiful. It's definitely expensive, but there are plenty of things to do. I think Marilyn spent a number of years living there, and she's got friends and network and all that stuff there. So it would be very easy for us to relocate, and me getting a visa as a spouse long term would be no problem, you know. And so that's what I'm saying. All these 5 locations, if we were going to leave, 4 of them are a shoe-in. The only one that would be a variable would be Thailand, but we just have to plan in advance for that one. I think we would be okay in the long run. So if you guys want to bug out, you want to leave, you know, be about it and make it happen. And you know, but just make sure that wherever you decide to go, it's easy for you to go, and you can make it happen for sure. But if not, it's just talk and blowing smoke, and you know, after a while people get kind of tired of hearing things if you don't actually put anything into play. So that's it there. And let's go ahead and jump into the next topic real quick. And so like I said, I did called an audible here. I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about now is I'm going to talk about the divorce call that I get from people. And just real quick, hang on, let me just get through here. All right, these guys are up here painting stuff. So, all right, so the divorce call that I get from clients and friends, that type of stuff. And what typically happens is I'll pick up the phone. There are some niceties that are, and I'll particularly talk about, I've got the call from both women and men. And what I'm going to talk about this time is at least the conversations that I have with the fellas about, getting a divorce. And so so typically what happens is somebody will call me on the phone and say, "Hey Dre, how you doing?" They'll start doing the small talk like we always do, and how's the weather, how's life, how's the family, how's kids, and all that. And I can just tell by the tone and their voice that this is a divorce call, and I don't want to just come out and say it, I just listen, play along, and eventually once the person gets up enough courage, if you want to say that, to go ahead and let me know what's going on. Because you got to remember, I have a very intimate relationship with all my clients. And I understand their finances, I understand their money, I know who's perpetrating, I know who's really about it, I keep people's secrets, all that type of stuff. And I can usually tell ahead of time, usually a year or 2 or 3, especially before, when I used to meet clients face to face, I can tell when they're on that route towards the final reconciliation where they've made a decision to get it done. And so they will, like I said, they'll start talking to me and let me know what's happening. And like I said, it takes a minute because, like I said, we have such a close relationship that they don't necessarily want to, it's almost like they're coming out about their divorce. You got to do it over and over and over and over and over, and each time it's different. You have to deal with judgment, and I thought you guys were doing so well, and oh my God, it's, I'm just, wow, I'm so surprised, and did you cheat? And people oftentimes don't want to have to go through all that stuff. And like I said, I'm very non-judgmental about this type of stuff. So my clients, like I said, they will start the conversation and they say, "Oh, by the way, me and my spouse are going to get a divorce." And like I said, I'm only talking about what I do with my male clients. And I'm like, you know what? And I always tell them, I said, you know what? I knew this was a divorce call. And I think I've been doing this more recently in the last 5 years as I've, determined what the pattern is and been able to see signs leading up to it. And some of the questions that they ask, about taxes and, maybe married filing separately, that type of stuff, to try to gather information. I just know. And so I'm like, I said, you know what? I knew this was coming, and I'm very, very sorry to hear this. And then they're always like, yeah, me too. I tried to do everything I can do to hang on as long as possible. And this is just what's best for us now. And I said, you know what, I get it. I've been there before in my past. And they say that's why I know that I can talk to you about this, because you've gone through it yourself and you bounced back. And I know you had to figure out things the hard way. And so, I figured if I talk to you, I can get years taken off my process. And so at that moment, I let them know, hey, I can help you and your spouse now and going forward in the future. I let them know about the different options when it comes to, doing when to get when they get the dilution done. What are their options for filing taxes, filing head of household potentially, married filing separate, that type of stuff, or still filing married joint. And we go through the different scenarios. I talk about the things that will benefit them and won't benefit them. Talk about the kids and sharing dependence and that type of stuff. And I let them know also too as well that their spouse, you know, if they decide they want to continue on with their relationship with me, both of them, that's cool. I'm not ever going to, because anything that you talk about historically where you guys were together and we filed jointly tax returns or whatever it might be, I'm more than happy to share that information. So, and I'll tell you, the other thing that happens too a lot of times is that only one of the spouses generally deal with me. I have very few situations where both spouses deal with me. Typically, some may, just for communication purposes, if we'll have a group text between both spouses and that type of thing. But pretty much for the most part, most of the time, it's only one spouse that kind of deals with me, you know, directly and when we're talking. And like I said, I end up going through and letting them know that if they decide that they want to, you know, continue, or they want to have their spouse continue, anything that happens once the split is over, I don't talk about anything that relates to their current situation, and vice versa, that it's confidential. And I probably say in the end, I probably have about 50% of the clients that will both stay with me. And so, and they appreciate that because I understand what they have going on. I've kind of gone through them through maybe a difficult time, and they appreciate, you know, the loyalty as well as the non-judgment nature of these type of events. So that's what I kind of do. And so after we've had all those conversations, we start to talk about the more personal stuff. And I have a lot of clients that are black men, you know, and we talk about things on that level. And so pretty much anybody that I have that's a client, I will tell them, you know, the same thing. But a lot of times our dating world has its own unique variables to it that a lot of other people don't understand. So, and a lot of these people, it's not so much like they've just got married and then they've only been married for 1 or 2 years and they get divorced. A lot of these people have been in the trenches for 15 or 20 years plus. And so the dating market has completely changed. And so, like I said, a lot of them have older, their kids. You know, it seems like a lot of people will wait until their kids or their youngest gets as close to 18 as possible, or at least in high school, before they'll make a move, you know, kind of a thing. But I'll let them know, hey, if you're gonna be out here in these streets, you gotta be very, very careful. And the world is not like it was when you were younger and when you were dating. And so I have the serious conversation with them and say, hey, you know, we talk about Hugh Hefner. I'm like, Hugh Hefner, he was in his 70s and in his 80s, and he was still having kids, you know, and you know, I know, you know, and it's like, do you want to be Hugh Hefner? It's like, well, I think I'm done with having kids. I don't want to go through it again. I don't want to have to reset the clock and start all over. And I know people that have gotten to the point where their children have gotten older, and they ended up having another kid later on, and they're in their late 50s, mid 50s, you know, 60s, and they're trying to navigate the life of responsibilities of having kids. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. You know, it's just, it's a lot to try to have to deal with when you've already gone through that before, and you kind of made a soft decision not to do anything about it or not to enter into it again, but there's nothing that's really permanent that has
distance 6.0 miles, duration 38 minutes and 33 seconds.
And there's nothing permanent that you've really done to lock down that decision. So I'll talk to them about getting a vasectomy. And a lot of them have thought about it. They're scared. Because, I mean, when it comes to man parts, we have learned over our lives to protect it at all costs. And the thought of having somebody approach it with a knife and a hot wand, how you doing? With a knife and a hot wand to try to, you know, burn your pipes, you know, it's crazy. So I'll tell them, I said, hey, I went through it. It took me years to get to the point where I had enough courage to be able to do it. But when my situation changed permanently, I knew that that's one of the things I wanted to get done, and I went through it. And I actually have a video on YouTube. It's on my YouTube page, AndreReese.Biz, where I talk about the whole vasectomy experience. So I'll drop that video into the text and let them watch it, you know. And so, because the other thing is that, and I let them know, like out here in these streets, when you're out here dating, you know, it's easy to get caught up and get trapped. And that goes for men and women. You know, women make bad decisions and men make bad decisions. And the thing is, if you're a fella and you're doing fairly decent, you appear to be better than the overall pool. And I said this at at our wedding when I was giving the speech to the ladies. I was like, you know what? As you get older, it's not impossible, but it gets a lot more difficult. But every day you have new people that re-enter the pool. And so if you're not ready at that level to have to deal with the things that you may not have foresight or hindsight about, you can end up having a situation where you end up getting somebody pregnant and you have to deal with a pregnancy and a baby situation. You know, so I let them know, hey, think about that and consider it. And if you end up making the move and making it happen, congratulations. If you don't do it, you need to take every precaution possible on this planet to make sure that when stuff happens that's permanent, it's what you wanted, not because of a lapse of judgment or whatever it might be. You know, like I said, I'm not trying to blame one side or another. I'm just giving my male clients some game here. And the last thing I talk about too, I said, you know, there's two types of relationships. There's express relationships, and then there's implied relationships. And then they're usually like, well, what the hell are you talking about? And I said, well, let me break it down this way. Let's use simple terms. Like when you were in high school, you liked a girl, you thought she was cool. What'd you do? You asked her to go study, and you became boyfriend and girlfriend. You went to the prom, all that together. And I said, at that moment, you knew you were in a relationship, and she knew she was in a relationship. No questions about it. Everybody knew you guys were together. You're going around every tree, carving your initials in it, writing it on a paper in class, and you know, all that whole thing. That's an express relationship. That's when two people agree that they are in a relationship. A lot of what happens now on these streets is that a lot of people end up in implied relationships. And they're like, well, I don't get how that works. I said, well, just think about it. You're on the apps, you're meeting different people, and you find a couple people that you like. And, you know, the young lady, you know, goes out with you and she identifies you as a suitable target. She's asking you about, you know, hey, you know, what about us and, you know, us being together? And you're like, you know, I need some time. I'm brand new to the market, just trying to work things out. And next thing you know, she's like, okay, cool, I respect that. And so, and then what she'll do is they will invite you to start getting integrated into their lives. And this is how it happens. So it's like, hey, one day, it's in the summertime, you're minding your own business. She calls you up and she says, hey, my girls, we're getting together. We're all going out to eat. Some of their boyfriends will be there. You want to go? And you're like, well, okay, cool, no problem. And the next thing you know, you pull up to the spot, you're meeting her friends, and you're like, okay, this is kind of cool. The next thing you know, you start double dating with some of them and doing other things. And people start saying things like, oh, you guys make a great couple. You're like, we're not a couple. We're just kind of dating and hanging out. But you are essentially the representative. So you're representing her. She's brought you around to get you kind of used to. It's almost like a test drive. When you don't really like a car too much, the salesperson, or you maybe like it a little bit, the salesperson will try to get you in the car, get you to rev the engine, drive around, do some donuts. That way you're like, oh wow, that was really cool. That kind of works out great. So that's like one situation. And then also too, it might be something like, you know, she's got a friend that's about to get married and she wants you to be her +1. So you go to an event like that, you dress up, you're the representative again, and then she's the one that ends up catching the bouquet. You've been forced to go out there and try to catch the garter, and whatever reason, you're one of the few guys that are there, and you end up catching it, and then next thing you know, everybody's like, oh, you guys are the next couple, but you're like, we're only dating, you know? And then it can also continue on where it can be like the holiday party for her work. And, you know, and like I said, none of this point have you actually said, we're in a relationship together. And then so what ends up happening is, you know, she invites you to be her +1 to her work party, and then you get to meet, you know, people at her job and all that type of stuff. So essentially what's been happening is you've been getting integrated into somebody's life and you're not really aware of it, that it's happening, and you're just kind of going along with it, you know, because, you know, you're in it for a good time, not necessarily a long time, you know, and it is what it is, you know, and so what can you do? It just keeps happening. And then you might get down to the point where, you know, so those are three really good examples. And then one night you guys might be back at the house and laying down doing your thing, and you just get taken out like a champ, and you've been served unlike you've ever been served before in your life. You can't even remember. You're laying there trying to remember, and then you guys are kind of cuddling, doing your own little thing. And then she might mention to you, she might say, you know what, and this might be a year later after you've made the resolution, and you'll say, you know what, she'll be saying, you know what, we've been hanging out now for like a year, and we've had such a good time together, you know, and even there might even be something where you get invited for holidays and Christmas and all that stuff, and get to meet her parents and all that. How you doing? And she's, good morning. And she's kind of like, you know what? We've been hanging out. Everything is cool. We get along great. And we do so many things together. Our friends like us. You know, you've got your toothbrush over here and a pair of shorts and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, if we probably would be better off if we're in a relationship and we're together. And, you know, you're kind of like, you know what? She's like, well, just think about it. We do everything together. We might as well just be a couple. And you're like, you know what? I haven't been having a good time. So, okay, all right, that's fine. So next thing you know, you have an implied relationship that's turned into a permanent relationship without really much thought on your side on how things would actually play out. So I use this as an example for my clients to let them know, hey, just be aware as you're out here dating that you have a lot of options, a lot of opportunities. This is your chance in life to get yourself redirected and start doing things that you've always wanted to do, but you weren't able to do. And you can pivot on almost everything. And so because somebody else has an agenda doesn't mean that you have to take part in it. And so if you find someone and that's what you're looking for and it all works out, great. But these are all things to be aware of, like I said. And I encourage them to, you know, if along the way, if there's anything that they're looking for, or issues or questions, they can always reach out to their Uncle Dre or Big Brother, and I will help guide them and provide them with an easier way to kind of understand what's going on. So like I said, that's the typical divorce call that I get, and those are a lot of besides the technical stuff, those are some of the things I tell guys that are getting, this guy's got a remote control lawnmower here. This is really cool. I've always wondered how they cut these things. It would be dangerous to be in it by yourself. So that's very cool. So, man, I don't know if you guys can see it or not. Whoa. Whew. Okay. All right. I don't know if you guys can see it behind me, but that's really cool. I've always wondered how they've cut these big slopes without flipping over, because these are greater than 45 degrees. So it's easy to tip over and end up down at the bottom, you know. But yeah, so that's what I tell my male clients. And my female clients, I talk to them a little bit differently. You know, more along the lines of, you know, things that they can do to shore themselves up, you know, options and opportunities that are available to them, you know, if they're looking at dating, you know, some of the things to watch out for when it comes to men. I let them know there's really only about 10 different types of men in this world, and everything else is like a variation. So, but they need to make sure that if this is what they're looking for, a lot of them aren't. They just want to take care of the kids, or they want to just chill for a while, or whatever it might be. You know, I just try to provide information that's customized for them. But for the fellas, it's always the same conversation. You know, so that's it. Talking about the divorce phone call that I get. So let's go ahead and slide into the last topic. And in a way, it kind of relates sideways to what we just talked about now. So there's a it's called Tonight's Conversation. It's one of the hottest podcasts right now that are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. And they are masters of clips. So, and essentially, if you haven't seen it, go look it up. And I'll tell you, it is just some crazy stuff. So they have a panel of experts, and I never actually looked into the expert panel to see what their background is, but they're equally almost weighted between men and women that are a little bit more seasoned, you know, 35 and up, where they've gone through some stuff in their lives. Some of them are married, some aren't, some have been married, some are single moms, so it all really depends. They have different perspectives. So, and what they do is, folks come to the show and they tape everything. And so we ended up going to their recent event that they had out here in Richmond, Virginia. It was on our anniversary date, and I've kind of lightly watched the clips, and I said, oh, it'd be so cool to go see these guys. Well, I never really actually dug into a lot of what they talk about and what's going on. So I was like, this would be kind of a great way for us to realize that we were smart in choosing each other, and it's kind of crazy out here on these streets. I didn't expect it to be as wild as it was. And so kind of how these guys started was they created these cards called Tonight's Conversation. They're not unlike any other get to know your spouse cards or your friends cards. So they ask a lot of different provocative questions, and they have a number of different decks of cards that you can buy. And so they kind of went from having these questions be asked until they got to the point where they would kind of like have a room of black folks, and it's mostly foundational folks, and they would ask these provocative questions, and the guys and girls would debate them. Then eventually they turned this into a road show, and now they have the Tonight's podcast where they film everything that's happening. So let me do this real quick. I'm gonna jump away real fast, let you see some of this footage, and then I'll come back in a second here, okay? Here we go.
I just have to ask the men on the panel, what disqualifies a woman from a wife and puts her in a placeholder position?
You know,
I want all y'all to answer that.
can I be honest, as somebody that was in a long-term relationship and didn't get engaged or married, I'm gonna say, sometimes, y'all gotta let me say this shit. Is this a judgment-free zone?
Hell no.
Sometimes men accidentally get in relationships.
Come on, Ace, go ahead. I know what
You just be there. You be around long enough. We don't even say we go together, but one day we sort of do, I guess. Then someday you like, maybe you in the bind, and then you like, well, can I stay with you a couple weeks? And you're like, sure. And then it turned into 6 months, and then next thing you know, you like together. You know what I'm saying? And then you didn't choose her, but it just happened that way.
It just felt that way. And yeah, I mean, he's right. I think that a lot of times women are dealing with a man that's reluctant to take them serious, but they're so consistent to where eventually along the line we start to care about you. We start to care about your feelings. Now that doesn't mean we want a long-term relationship. We just care about your feelings and we don't necessarily want to hurt you. So all of a sudden you wake up with a toothbrush in your bathroom. You wake up with her.
Okay, so y'all got that. I want to know what disqualifies a woman and puts her in a place. So that's one reason I want y'all to answer that, because we see that it happens a lot right now. Social media's talking about it a lot. What disqualifies a woman and puts her in that placeholder position besides that?
It means that like she may bring 80% of what it is that we want, but she doesn't listen well. Or she comes to the relationship with the expectation of what she can receive, but doesn't come to the relationship with plans to provide or openness to give that man what it is he wants, find out what it is that he wants. And I think men kind of pick that up, and it's like, okay, boom. Like, she may be cool for now, but do I feel comfortable spending the next 40, 50 years with her? Do I feel comfortable giving her the passcode to my bank account? Do I feel comfortable putting my 401k, putting her as a beneficiary to my 401k in case something goes wrong? And a lot of men don't necessarily feel that safety with a woman. And that's
all right, guys, we are back. Like I said, what they talk about is absolutely wild and crazy. And the thing that is just so amazing is that folks were, and let me just say this real quick. We had a great time there. If you do it, I highly recommend getting the VIP seats. They end up renting out a large auditorium, and if you get the general admission seats, you're gonna be like way in the back. You know, and so if you get the VIP seats, if the place opens at 6:30 for VIP, you want to get there half an hour early. That way you can get a seat up front to be able to see everything. It was really cool. And like I said, and some of the topics that people talked about there were heart-wrenching. And the thing that, and meaning that there was one lady, she's been in a situationship for like the last 23 years. She's trying to get advice on what she should do. And man, the judgment was definitely on her. And this is something that people definitely need, because they don't understand the long-term consequences and repercussions of a lot of the decisions that they make. And these guys here are going to be completely honest with them. So they end up filming 2 sets. They do 5 questions on each set, and 5 or 10, I don't remember what it was. And from that point, they are good to go. And so the crazy thing is, at this event, I was shocked. I think Marilyn did a calculation. I think there was a total of 2,500 people that were in this auditorium, and it was almost sold out. And I would honestly say you'd be lucky if there was 50 guys that were in there. It was all mostly women, very few men. It was mostly foundational folks, and we definitely when we get together in an FBA event, we definitely celebrate with DJ drops and dances and dancing in the aisle and a little bit of a twerk fest and being able to do the robot and all that kind of stuff. So it was actually fantastic. But the majority of people that were there at the event, which is what I was surprised about, were women. And so there was so much crowd participation from the women that were there, the sisters. And a lot of them, you can tell that they've gone through some situations that were similar, or they could be going through situations that were similar. There were women up there that were asking questions that were in tears. And I think the most shocking thing is, no matter how crazy these situations were, people know that they're being taped. They know that they're going to become content, that people were still willing to go up there and spill their own dirty laundry. And Richmond's not a big town. It's not a small town. It's someplace in the middle. And to let people know your business out here in the streets, I'm still trying to get over that one also as well. But like I said, in these kind of things, no judgment. And I hope, and I think that some of the more sticky situations, they took on the task of, being able to contact and work with them afterwards so they can get the help they need. So it's not like one of those things where folks are there, they're getting exploited, and they're being left to fend for themselves after resources have been extracted from them. I think these guys are actually doing a lot to try to help people. And I think that, and if you think about this, the whole entire business that they have now is 100% BS, straight up, 100% BS. And this is if you're going to be in a business, that's what you want to do, is enter in a business that is 100% BS. And so, and it's said in a negative or bad way, in any kind of way. I am just amazed that they were able to take something that was so insignificant, just answering questions and making up questions for people to ask at a party, and turning that into, it turned into an incredible touring business that they make a lot of money on. And from counting the 2,500 seats that they had there, you probably figure on average that they got about $100 a seat. Some cases more, but that's about the average price. So that night they made $250,000 gross. And then by the time they extract their money out and pay for the venue and other people that were there, at most, it was probably 100 grand, at most. But I think it was probably closer to 50 to 75. That's a lot of money that's left over to be able to, it's probably closer to 100 grand when you figure in travel and bringing stuff and all that. But still, that's a lot of money that's left over to split up amongst themselves for them just to sit on stage and talk about stuff. And I think any of us, this should be something that's inspirational to everybody, that you can take a very, very simple idea and grow it into something like this that makes millions and millions of dollars a year, and it helps. So what would be a reasonable thing for them to do? If after this, they turn out and create a network of individuals that provide therapy and help and assistance, and they get a cut of each one of those referrals, they can keep this thing going. And I think a lot of people are very much aware of what they're doing and how they're making it happen. And like I said, I sat there in awe watching this event. And like I said, there are very few men that are there. And when you kind of talk, when I was talking before earlier about, make sure I get to this okay. When I was talking before earlier about, telling the guys that call me on the divorce call, about what's going on and all that, I think this is one of the things I'm going to start referring them to watch, because, or go to one of the shows, because I'll tell you, the one thing I thought in my head, and I may have said afterwards, is if you are a guy out here trying to figure it out, and I'm not saying in any way that we are perfect, we're not. We have issues, we have problems. It took me a long time to get over my own demons, But inside the room there, the thing I was thinking was like, well, how in the world is somebody supposed to sort through all the legacy issues in here and find a mate? It gets to be very, very hard, you know? And I think it's very indicative of a lot of what's going on right now on both sides. And the men themselves, they weren't there to blow themselves up. You know, I know that they have just as many problems that they're dealing with also as well. So I know it's very, very hard for anybody these days to try to find somebody to get yoked up with. And if you do, you know, you got to have your stuff together or you're going to miss out on an opportunity. So that is the encouragement, to get yourself right. So when somebody else does come along that is suitable for you, that you're able to be ready to accept it and take it and start the relationship. And they're also ready also as well. And if it's anything else that's a variable outside of that, you're kidding yourself. You know, so take the time to get yourself right. And if you have to remove yourself a while from the market to do so, do so. But if you guys ever get a chance to check these guys out, if they come to your town, somewhere near you, check them out. Tonight's conversation. Get the VIP package. It definitely was well worth it. And we were able to get selfies with all the artists, with all the people that were up on stage. And it was a great time. It was about 4 hours that we probably spent there all together. So that's it, guys. I don't have anything else to talk about. We're riding through the VCE area here, and folks are still in the process of packing up and moving out. So congratulations to all the graduates again. I wish you guys all well in your career choice. And that's it, guys. I'll see you. Take care. Peace. In my life. Oh, shit. Okay, my brother fell. This is black ice. Okay. All right, I'm okay. All systems check. All right, I'm good. So let me just penguin it.